Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Danny Kalala, and we are live today to talk about something delicate. You may be out there dealing with something called unresolved grief. You may have lost something or someone in your life, and you just feel like you're not able to get back to normal. Life is not the same, and you don't know how to move forward. Well, I've got good news because we've got a specialist with you today, and stick around because you're going to hear from Laurie and her crazy, crazy story of grief and how she lost three very close loved ones, and how she got stuck in grief for quite some time. But as we get started, Laurie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody in the audience?
Hi, I'm Laurie Freeman, and I'm a certified grief recovery specialist with the Grief Recovery Method. I offer a 7-week educational program on grief and loss.
Love it. So what I want you to know today is, again, you're somebody that just you're not able to get through. You're not able to get by. Something is keeping you back and costing you great when it comes to grief in your life. And again, Laurie, the title of today's topic is Grief Chose Me, which is your story. And I think when you do this kind of work, you got to have a why, right? You got to have a reason to help human beings. And yours is that you had some pretty significant loss in your life. So why don't
I
you go ahead and
have.
talk about that?
So, April 2nd, 2010, my 19-year-old son had gone up to Boulder to hang out with friends at the college. He was supposed to be gone the entire weekend. He came home less than 24 hours later, and within 30 minutes of being home, he had killed himself. 2 weeks after my son died, my daughter checked herself into rehab, and that's when we found out she was diagnosed as bipolar. She was in the rehab facility for over 6 weeks. 7 months later, my husband took his life also. So I'm intimately friends with grief. Um, I lost the three most important people in my life. Um, Also, my daughter died over 4 years ago. So I've lost all three of my most important people in my life, my children and my husband. So I was thrown into some really deep, deep grief. And you have to go through it to get through it. And I had a hard time going through it.
And again, we share the story not to say, "Oh, Lori, you have it so bad," but to remind you that if you're somebody and this is holding you back and you're not able to get through your grief, that you've done it and you've had some pretty substantial loss in your life. But at some point, you had said, "I had enough," and you went on to something called the grief recovery method, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I want to pause real quick. If you are joining us either live or in the replay, we want to know you stopped by today. We want to know you're here. If you're somebody that's suffering from grief and you've gotten through that, we'd love to hear about the strides and the leaps
Yeah.
that you've made through grief in your life. It's going to inspire somebody else to get through. That's why Lori's sharing today, to inspire somebody else to finally take that hard step. But so you lost three very, very close, important family members in your life pretty quickly. And talk about how you were unable to grieve because you were just trying to hold it all together. And moms out there, if you can relate to this, give her some thumbs up.
Yes. So when my daughter went into rehab, she had two young children, 2 years old and 3 years old, and dad had to have night meetings. So I was working full time. I'd go pick up the boys from daycare. I'd take them home. I'd feed them. I'd bathe them, put them to bed, clean the house, wait for dad to get home, and then I would go home. My husband was not doing well with his loss of his son. So he was struggling quite a bit, which made me worry all the time. So I didn't really have time to grieve. I may sometimes driving home from watching the boys, I'd pull over to the side of the road and just lose it. I mean, screaming, yelling, crying, the whole 9 yards, and then just suck it all back in to go home because I didn't want to show those emotions to my husband who was struggling so hard. I thought maybe it would make it worse for him.
So you were really in this stage where you were trying to protect your husband, but at the end of the day, it was costing you dearly because you didn't even have the you didn't even have the time to go up against your grief. And we're going to talk about what fine means here in a second, and we're also going to talk about what this unresolved grief is probably costing you. So I want to encourage you to kind of stick around for the broadcast today, but this story is kind of crazy, and I told Laurie she has to share it. And you may be somebody who's ran into a breaking point in your life like this, but talk about that first trip to the grocery store.
So, a month after my husband had died, and the food trains had stopped, and the people, stopping by to take me out to dinner or whatever, kind of had slowed down because people are going back to their normal lives. It was time to go to the grocery store. So I drove over to King Soopers and I got the cart and I started going through the produce section up and down the aisles, but just putting food into the cart. As I was getting close to the checkout counter, I stopped and I looked down at the cart, and I had bought food for 3 people and now it was only one. I I lost it. I went up to a clerk. I had tears running down my face. I gave them the cart. I said, please put this back. And I just left. Um, Next time going to the grocery store, I was more cognizant of only buying for one, but that has its own grief attached to it because you're only buying for one.
So that's pretty impactful. I mean, that's really kind of getting up against the wall there in your grief, and I mean, to really put it lightly, that was probably very embarrassing for you. On top of
Yeah,
grief, you were embarrassed
I
and you didn't
was.
know what to do, and that's just emotions on top of emotions. And let's talk about this idea because I know you feel passionately about this. But the trap of I'm fine, the trap of I'm fine. Like, how are you? I'm fine. I'm just fine. Talk about that trap.
So when you say I'm fine, to me and to the grief recovery method, fine means feelings inside not expressed. And our society, they don't handle sadness and grief very well at all. The cliche, laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone. We're taught very early not to say, hey, I'm having a really crappy day today. We're taught to say, I'm fine, so we don't bother other people with our feelings and our emotions. And all that does for us is to make us keep all that stuff inside. And eventually, our subconscious starts to believe we are fine, but our bodies start to say, you're not fine. You're not sleeping. You're not eating right. You may be doing harm to your body by drinking. So, saying I'm fine is so detrimental to your physical and emotional health.
And I think for you, you were following this whole myth of just keep busy, just keep going. If I stay busy enough, I'm going to be fine. If I stay busy enough, I don't think about this stuff. And talk about that trap of just being busy and the myth of just be busy, just move on, just make sure you keep yourself busy.
Be strong, time heals all wounds, keep busy. It, that's supposed to, what people think it does, it makes you move through the grief and be able to function and be normal. But what it really does is just makes you bury all those feelings and emotions inside, and eventually they're going to explode and they're going to come out.
And I totally get that. And before we kind of even move forward, I want to really specify what the grief recovery method is because at some point in your life you finally decided I had enough. You've been to groups. Groups weren't necessarily helping you because you were just kind of reliving these same memories and going through the same process of what happened. This happened to me, and you as a client went through the grief recovery method, which is a very evidence-based, step by step. It would be for you if you're somebody that's like, I'm tired of being in grief. I'm tired of grieving. I'm tired of feeling this way. Somebody needs to give me some steps to follow to get out of this. And
Sure.
talk about your experience as a client with the grief recovery method.
So I did the grief recovery method, and I worked on my husband, because for 7 years, and 7 years is a long, long time, I was very, very angry with him. How could you go and leave me like that? How could you kill yourself when you know that how painful it is when someone you love kills themselves? So I had been angry for too long. So I went through the program, And going through the program, you look at those myths that we talked about, be strong, time heals all wounds. We look at all that stuff. We look at the stuff that people do to make themselves feel better. So, having maybe 2 glasses of wine when you really shouldn't. Things like that. People find their things that make them feel what they think is better. But then we work on the relationship. And going through the relationship, it brought back to me, I fell in love with this man. I married him. I had children with him. We built a great life. I was focused in on all the negativity, not the whole relationship. And when you look at the relationship, you also look at your part in it. And so going through that and then going through the recovery part of it of, what was the undelivered communications that I needed to say? What was I sorry for? What do I need to forgive for? And what do I just need to say to get it out? Because once you put all this feelings and emotions into words, it is tremendous. I still can feel the feeling of I was sitting up straighter, I was lighter. It was just an awesome, awesome feeling to finally complete that relationship.
So it was profound in your life, so much so that you decided, look, I gotta put my hand down. I gotta grab somebody else and pull somebody up. And you went
Correct.
through this whole program to become a qualified. Qualified's the wrong word, but you became a certified
Yes.
instructor. So you're a certified grief recovery specialist. But
Yes.
if you're still watching up to this point, again, either live or in the replay, and you've been following Laurie, and you're thinking, man, I mean, I want to do this. Like, I really want to do this. I'm tired of feeling this way. Well, we're going to talk about what your unresolved grief costs you. And we mean this from a place of love when we talk about this, but there are certain things that when you don't feel good and you can't get through it, that you don't know it's costing you in your life. And talk about some of the costs that people have when they don't resolve their grief.
So first of all, unresolved grief, that's about things we wish we had said or done differently with that person. Um, about the lost hopes, dreams, and expectations that you were planning to have with that person, and all those undelivered communications. So unresolved grief, what it does is just festers inside you. The long-term effects can be, how you handle new relationships going forward, how you handle your everyday life, your job, your schooling, friends, hobbies. If you don't resolve that grief, you can harm yourself physically, you can harm yourself professionally, you can sabotage relationships that you might have that might make your life better.
Yeah, and I took some notes when we were talking about this first time, but your joy, your happiness, your closure, the lost hopes and dreams and expectations. But this is something that you're not thinking about that's probably costing you if you have grief that you just can't seem to get through, and that's job performance,
Correct.
job opportunities because you're in that sort of failure to thrive stage. You're not pushing through, you're kind of stuck where you're at. I also wrote down your health, your confidence, your relationships, all things you talked about. But, having unresolved grief and letting it just be there and be with you and not
Mm-hmm.
really work on getting over it, because let's talk to what people are really feeling right now. You're feeling that it's going to be a lot of pain, right? Like, this hurts already. Why in the world would I purposefully walk into something that I know is going to be even more pain? And again, we understand that feeling, but talk about, Laurie, sort of how there is pain involved, but it's not painful.
There, there is pain involved because you have to look at the relationship and your part in it and their part in your life, your story together, and bringing it up out. Yeah, it's going to hurt somewhat, but as you go through the concise steps of the program, those steps lead you towards the feeling of closure, if you want to. That's the word most people think about. Closure, towards the feeling of I'm good with this relationship. I can be happy again. I can be fulfilled in my life again. I can look back without feeling sad or angry at memories that I have with these people.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we won't even talk about the person if it's unresolved grief. It's so painful to go look back at memories, but this program will lead you towards the part of it's not painful anymore, and you can look back with fond memories and realize that that person was beneficial in your life, but you still have more life to live.
And again, this is something you don't have access to until you start to go through a program. And again, we want to really reiterate this isn't just a group program where you sit in group and you talk about what's going on in your life. And some people do get relief that way, so we're not knocking that at all.
Mm-mm.
But if you're somebody that's interested in having a step-by-step process and have somebody like Laurie be your accountability partner to start pulling you through these steps that, again, feel like they're going to be a lot of pain, but talk about how relieved you were when you finally released that anger with your husband.
It
Like, how free were you?
it was it was enlightening. It was, I mean, literally, I felt like I was floating up, and things dropping off my shoulders and tingling. It was just a phenomenal, phenomenal feeling. And I have seen that with the clients that I have had.
So Lori is obviously in the business of helping you. She's obviously in the business of helping you get through the grief that is in your life. And we do this live broadcast today to let you know who this human being is. We understand that you feel like you need to jive with somebody you're going to do this hard work with. And we're doing live video today, and she's sharing these real and authentic stories to make sure that if you feel like this is your human, if she can help you get through it and you can relate with her, with what she's gotten in her life, then the hardest thing you'll ever do, and I promise you this, is to pick up that phone for the first time and reach out and say, look, I need some support. I need some help. And this is the human being that's just waiting for you to say that so she can finally say, let's get to work.
Let's
Like,
get to
let's
work.
get to work. Let's do this evidence-based program that's going to help you get through this. Now, how long is this program that you do when it comes to the grief recovery method?
So it's 7 weeks. It's an hour to an hour and a half each time. And you are, like and he said, accountable. You are held accountable because there are reading assignments and written assignments to go along with the program, and also a lot of one-on-one talking, you and me, about how you're feeling and how we can get you to feel like I felt.
So 7 weeks.
7 weeks.
7 weeks. And again, this is one of the only evidence-based programs out there. This has worked for hundreds of thousands of people. So you can go Google the grief recovery method. You can go do all your homework on your own that you want to do. But that's delaying you from the actual fact of getting involved with Laurie and actually starting this move. So you have office space here in Colorado. How far can you help people?
I can help people. My office is in downtown Littleton, but give me a call. And, I've had people come from north, south, but give me a call and we can talk about logistics and if how I can help you, because I know I can.
So you're offering to everybody that sees this message, either live or in the replay, a free consultation.
I am.
It's not a heavy sale. She's not going to figure out how to get you to come in. You might just need somebody to talk to about what you're going on. You might have been a little inspired today that, like, look, I'm not getting through this. And to be honest, we're in a very crazy time with the pandemic. If it wasn't already hard for you, it's like, isn't this the straw that broke the camel's back, to the point where you might finally reach out and get some help. So visit healingheartcenterco.com, healingheartcenterco.com. Everything's on there, phone numbers, contact forms, information. And again, it's hard. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, to pick up that 10,000 pound phone and just dial that number and say, Laurie, I need help. And tell her, Laurie, I saw your Facebook Live video. I need help. You told me to call you. And that free consultation, tell me how that's going to go. I pick up the phone and I say, look, Laurie, I had multiple suicides. I had a suicide last year in my family. I'm just not getting through. Laurie, how are you going to help me? Talk to them right there.
I'm going to have you tell me your story. And I understand how you feel. I may not know exactly how you feel because your feelings are unique to you and mine are to me, but I'm going to be what I call a heart with ears, and I'm going to listen to your story and determine that you and I can work together. Or if not, I will be honest and let you know that. But having gone through what I've gone through and helping the people I have helped with this program, I'm sure I can help you.
And I know she can too. And that's why, it's an honor of mine to be working with her and to help her get here and kind of talk to you and do live content in the real, most authentic way. This isn't structured. This isn't a produced piece of content. This is human beings just talking to human beings in hopes that you will take that brave next step of reaching out and getting help. So everything you need to know is at the website below, healingheartco.com, phone numbers, contact forms. Do yourself a favor and start the process. You might be off work, you might have downtime. This is the best time to start moving that direction. So we really hope that you take this opportunity and you move forward. So Laurie, thanks today for sharing.
Thank
Thanks for being
you.
authentic. And thanks for really standing for these people out here.
Thank you. I hope to talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.